The big meeting room was dark except for the blue light coming from the floating screen in the middle. Ambassador Thelanara, a tall alien with smooth gray skin, pressed a button with one of her 6 fingers. The screen showed a burning city with tall buildings falling down like broken toys. A voice came through the speakers. It was shaky and full of fear. "Please, anyone who can hear this message. They are destroying everything. Our children are hiding in the ruins. We cannot fight them anymore. If anyone in the galaxy can help us, please come." The voice belonged to a mother from the planet Zephoria. Her people looked like tall, thin humans, but with golden skin that sparkled like stars. They had built beautiful cities with gardens on every rooftop and rivers running through the streets. But now those same rivers ran red with blood. Thelanara stopped the message and looked around the room. 50 different alien species sat in their special chairs, each one designed for their unique bodies. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others had wings folded behind their backs. A few looked almost human except for their purple skin or extra eyes. All of them looked scared. "This is the 47th world," Thelanara said quietly. "The Void. Syndicate has destroyed 47 peaceful planets in the last 5 years. Each time we tell ourselves we will do something. Each time we do nothing." Counselor Veltar, who looked like a giant octopus wearing fancy robes, raised one of his tentacles. "But what can we do? Our ships are made for exploration, not war. Our people study art and music and science. Do not know how to fight." "The Syndicate knows this," replied another council member named Zixara. She had 4 arms and skin that changed colors when she was upset. Right now, her skin was flashing angry red. "They attack us because we are weak. They know we will always choose to run instead of fight." The room filled with worried whispers in dozens of different languages. Some aliens made clicking sounds with their mouths. Others spoke in musical tones that sounded like singing. But they all meant the same thing: fear. The Void Syndicate was not like the peaceful aliens in the Federation. They came from a dark part of the galaxy where planets were covered in poisonous clouds and the stars gave off deadly radiation. Their ships were black metal monsters covered in weapons. Their soldiers wore armor that looked like the skeletons of dead animals. They did not want to make friends or trade goods like normal civilizations. They wanted to take everything. They would land on a planet, steal all the valuable metals and crystals, and then blow up what was left. If the people living there tried to stop them, the Syndicate would kill them all without thinking twice. "Have tried sending messages asking them to stop," said Counselor Ractum. His people looked like walking trees with glowing blue leaves. "We have offered them money and resources from our own worlds. Nothing works. That is because they enjoy the killing," Thelanara said sadly. "They do not attack us for resources. They attack us because we are weak and they are strong. It makes them feel powerful." The room became quiet again. Everyone knew she was right. The Syndicate had more resources than they could ever use. They destroyed worlds not because they needed to, but because they wanted to. Then a small voice spoke up from the back of the room. "What about the Death World?" Everyone turned to look. It was Pipko, a young alien who had just started working as an aide. He looked like a small version of Thelanara, but with green skin instead of gray. His job was to bring water and food to the council members during long meetings. No one expected him to speak. "What did you say?" asked Thelanara. Pipko's skin turned bright green, which meant he was embarrassed. "I'm sorry for speaking without permission. But I heard about a planet called Earth. The exploration team said it was a death world, where everything tries to kill everything else. Maybe the creatures there know how to fight." The room exploded with noise. Some aliens laughed. Others made shocked, gasping sounds. A few started arguing with each other in their own languages. A death world. Veltar's tentacles were shaking. "You want us to ask help from savage beasts?" "They're not beasts," Pipko said, getting braver. Exploration report said they built cities and spaceships. They are intelligent like us. But they also know how to survive in a place where everything wants to kill them. Thelanara held up her hand for silence. She remembered the report about Earth. It had been filed away and forgotten because no one wanted to think about such a horrible place. The planet was covered in storms that could destroy buildings. The oceans were filled with creatures that could swallow ships whole. Even the plants were dangerous, with some of them eating animals that came too close. But somehow the creatures called humans had not only survived, but thrived. They had turned their deadly planet into a home. They had built machines that could travel between stars. They had even sent friendly messages to other worlds, wanting to make friends. "It is a crazy idea," Thelanara said slowly, "but we have tried everything else. Maybe it is time to try something crazy." The voting took 3 hours. When it was over, the decision was made. They would send a message to Earth asking for help from the Deathworlders. It was their last hope. As the council members left the room, Pipko stayed behind to clean up. He looked at the screen, which still showed the burning city on Zephoria. "Please let this work," he whispered to himself. "Please let the humans help us." The small alien spaceship shook like a leaf in a tornado as it came down through Earth's thick atmosphere. Ambassador Thelanara gripped her seat with all 6 hands, her gray skin turning pale green with fear. Through the window, she could see why her people called this place a death world. Lightning bolts as thick as buildings crashed down from black clouds that stretched across whole continents. The bolts were not the gentle blue sparks she knew from her home planet. These were angry white monsters that could turn mountains into glass. Hurricane winds spun in circles bigger than her entire world, carrying enough water to fill oceans. "How does anything live down there?" whispered her assistant, Krixana. His 4 eyes were wide with terror. The ship's computer started beeping warnings in a robotic voice. "Radiation levels dangerous. Atmospheric toxins detected. Magnetic field unstable. Recommend immediate departure." Thelanara could see something that made no sense. Through the storms and poison clouds, lights twinkled on the surface. Not just a few scattered fires, but millions of bright spots, arranged in perfect patterns. Cities, somehow impossibly there. "We're cities down there. Take us to the landing coordinates," she told the pilot. Even though her voice shook, as they got closer, the cities became clearer. They were not the delicate crystal towers her people built, or the floating gardens of the Veltari. These were massive structures made of metal and stone, built to survive anything the planet could throw at them. Some buildings were shaped like pyramids to shed hurricane winds. Others were underground, with only small windows peeking out at the deadly surface. The landing pad was inside a huge dome that protected it from the acid rain falling outside. As soon as their ship touched down, Thelanara saw humans waiting for them. She had studied pictures of these creatures, but seeing them in person was different. They stood upright on 2 legs like her people, but they were built heavier, with thick bones and strong muscles. Their skin was not smooth like hers, but covered in tiny hairs, and their eyes were small and sharp. The first human to approach their ship was wearing a dark blue uniform with shiny buttons. He had black hair and a face that showed no fear, even though he was meeting aliens for the first time. When he smiled, Thelanara saw his white teeth and felt a chill run down her spine. It was a friendly smile, but there was something behind it that reminded her of the predators from her world's ancient history. "Welcome to Earth," the human said, as Thelanara stepped out of her ship. "I am Minho, Earth's Minister of Alien Relations. We have been expecting you." Behind Minho stood another human, this one wearing a green military uniform with small metal bars on the chest. She was shorter than Minho, but somehow more frightening. Her dark eyes seemed to look right through Thelanara, like she was studying a puzzle she planned to solve. This was General Jisoo, according to the files Earth had sent. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Thelanara said, trying to keep her voice steady. "We know this is unusual." "Unusual is one word for it," Minho replied, still smiling. "When we got your message asking for military help, some of our people thought it was a joke. We have been trying to join the galactic community for years, but everyone always said we were too dangerous." General Jisoo stepped forward, and Thelanara's scales rippled with instinctive fear. There was something about the way the human moved that reminded her of the hunting cats from her childhood nightmares. Smooth, quiet, and completely focused. "Let's cut to the point," Jisoo said. Her voice was calm and level, but it carried a... "Wait," that made the air feel heavier. You want our help with something? What is it? Thelanara activated her portable hologram projector. The air above it shimmered, and suddenly the room was filled with images from the Zephyrian attack. Burning cities appeared around them, so real they could almost feel the heat. The sound of explosions and screaming filled the space. Both humans watched without saying a word. Minho's friendly smile slowly disappeared. Jisu's eyes got colder, like ice forming on a window. This is what the Void Syndicate does, Thelanara explained. They have destroyed 47 worlds in the last 5 years. Each time they kill everyone who tries to stop them. How many dead? Minho asked quietly. Billions, Thelanara whispered. Men, women, children. They do not care. They kill everyone and take everything. And what has your Federation done about this? Jisu's voice was so flat it was almost robotic. Thelanara's skin flushed purple with shame. We have tried diplomacy. We sent messages asking them to stop. We offered them resources from our own worlds if they would leave the peaceful planets alone. Diplomacy, Jisu repeated the word like it tasted bad. Tried to negotiate with mass murderers. Not warriors, Thelanara said desperately. My people have not fought a war in 10,000 years. None of the Federation races have. We do not know how to fight. Minho and Jisu looked at each other. Something passed between them without words, the kind of understanding that only comes from working together for many years. But you do, Minho said, turning back to Thelanara. We do what? You know how to fight? Jisu said. You just choose not to. There is a difference. The room became very quiet. Outside the dome, Thelanar could hear the acid rain hitting the metal roof like bullets. Thunder crashed overhead and the whole building shook. We live on a planet that tries to kill us every day, Minho said softly. The storms, the radiation, the animals, even the plants. Everything here wants us dead, but we are still here. Do you know why? Thelanara shook her head. Because we fight back, Jisu said. When something tries to kill us, we kill it first. When something tries to take our home, we defend it. When something hurts our people, we make it stop. Will you help us? Thelanara asked. The two humans looked at each other again. This time, both of them smiled. It was not the friendly smile from before. This was the smile of predators who had just found prey. Yes, Minho said. We will help you. The massive assembly hall in New Geneva was packed with 2,000 representatives from every nation on Earth. President Hyunwoo walked slowly to the center stage, his footsteps echoing in the silent room. Above him, the curved ceiling showed a live view of space, where Earth's small fleet of exploration ships floated like tiny dots against the stars. He had not slept in 3 days. The alien request kept playing in his mind like a broken record. They wanted Earth to fight an empire that had been terrorizing the galaxy for hundreds of years. An empire with weapons that could crack planets and ships the size of cities. Representatives of Earth, Hyunwoo began, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall through hidden speakers. 3 days ago, we received a message from Ambassador Thelanara of the Galactic Federation. They are asking us to do something that seems impossible. He pressed a button on his podium, and the ceiling display changed. Now it showed the burning cities of Zephoria, with families running through smoke-filled streets while dark ships rained fire from the sky. The Void Syndicate has destroyed 47 worlds, Hyunwoo continued. Billions of innocent people are dead, and the entire galaxy is asking us, the newest and smallest members of the galactic community, to stop them. Some representatives shook their heads. Others stared at the images above with horror, defense. Minister Soman stood up from her seat in the front row. She was a small woman with gray hair, but her voice could command the attention of generals and admirals. The numbers are not good, she said, walking to join Hyunwoo on the stage. Our entire fleet consists of 12 exploration ships and 6 military vessels. The Syndicate has over 10,000 warships. She activated her own holographic display showing Earth's ships next to images of Syndicate vessels. The difference was shocking. Earth's largest ship looked like a toy next to the massive black warships of the enemy.
Ow.
Their technology is centuries ahead of ours, Salman continued. Their weapons can destroy cities from orbit. Their shields can stop nuclear explosions. By every measure we can calculate, fighting them would be suicide. Representative Tae-young from South Korea stood up in the middle section. He was young for a politician, only 35, but he had served in the military before entering government. And yet, he said, his voice cutting through the worried murmurs, "We are the only ones willing to try." Is exactly the problem, Admiral Chae-yoon called out from the military section. She was the commander of Earth's space fleet, and her face showed the strain of the impossible task being asked of her. "We have 18 ships. They have thousands. We have 500,000 trained soldiers. They have billions. This is not bravery, it is madness." Colonel Jae-in, who commanded Earth's Special Forces, stood up next to the admiral. "Sometimes madness is the only sane response to evil," he said firmly. "Every day we wait, more innocent people die. Every day we do nothing, the syndicate gets stronger." The debate exploded across the hall. Representatives shouted in dozens of languages. Some pounded their desks with their fists. Others held up signs showing pictures of the destroyed worlds. "We cannot save everyone," yelled the representative. "From Brazil, we barely have enough ships to defend our own planet. But we can try," responded the representative from Nigeria. "We do nothing, we become part of the problem." "This is not our fight," argued the representative from Russia. "These alien worlds mean nothing to us. They mean everything to us," countered the representative from Japan. "If we turn our backs on genocide, what does that make us?" The argument went on for hours. Military experts showed charts proving Earth had no chance of winning. Philosophers quoted ancient texts about the duty to help others. Politicians argued about the cost of war and the price of peace. President Hun-woo listened to it all, feeling the weight of the decision crushing down on him. How do you choose between the safety of your own people and the lives of billions of strangers? Then a small voice spoke up from the public gallery. "Excuse me." Everyone turned to look. A little girl, maybe 8 years old, was standing in the section reserved for citizens who wanted to watch the debate. She had gotten separated from her parents and wandered down to the front row. "Yes, dear," Hyun-woo said gently. "Why wouldn't we help people who are dying?" she asked in a clear, innocent voice. The hall became completely silent. 2,000 of Earth's most powerful people stared at a child who had just asked the simplest question in the world. Hyun-woo felt tears forming. In his eyes, "What is your name, little one?" "Soyin," she said. "My teacher says we should always help people who need help." "Why is this different?" Representative Tae-young stood up slowly. "It is not different," he said quietly. "It is not different at all." One by one, other representatives began to stand. First dozens, then hundreds. Within minutes, the entire hall was on its feet. "All in favor of approving military aid to the Galactic Federation?" Hyun-woo asked. Every hand in the room went up. Even Admiral Chae-young, who had argued against the mission, raised her hand with tears streaming down her face. "The motion passes," Hyun-woo announced. "Earth goes to war." As the representatives filed out of the hall, little Soyin found her parents in the crowd. "Did I say something wrong?" she asked. Her father picked her up and hugged her tight. "No, sweetheart," he whispered. "You said something very, very right." Outside, Earth's factories were already starting to work. The impossible had become inevitable. Humanity was going to war against an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. And somehow, against all odds, they were going to win. The underground laboratory in Seoul hummed with activity 24 hours a day. Dr. Sung-hoon had not left the facility in 2 weeks, surviving on coffee and determination. In his hands, he held a Federation plasma rifle that cost more than most planets' entire military budgets. To him, it looked like an expensive toy. "Look at this," he said to Dr. Yaji, who was working at the station next to him. He pointed to the rifle's power. Core with a small screwdriver. They built this thing like a piece of art. Everything is perfectly balanced and beautiful, but it falls apart if you sneeze on it. Dr. Yaji, a weapons engineer who had spent her career designing equipment for Earth's harsh environments, nodded as she examined her own alien device. "The energy flow is smooth and efficient, but there are no backup systems." What happens if the main power core gets damaged? It stops working, Sung-hoon said with a laugh. On Earth, if our guns stopped working every time they got wet or dirty, we would all be dead by now. Around them, 50 other scientists worked at similar stations. Each one had been given a different piece of Federation technology to study. Plasma weapons, energy shields, faster-than-light engines, anti-gravity systems. All of it was incredibly advanced, but all of it was built by species that had never faced real danger. They are like people who have lived in a greenhouse there. Whole lives, said Dr. Min-jae, who was working on a Federation shield generator. Everything is perfect and controlled. They never had to worry about storms, or radiation, or things trying to eat them. The scientists had been working for 3 weeks since the alien technology arrived. At first, they had been amazed by how advanced it was. Federation ships could travel between stars in days instead of months. Their weapons could destroy mountains. Shields could stop nuclear explosions. But as they studied the technology more carefully, they began to see the weaknesses. All of it was designed for perfect conditions. Clean air, stable temperatures, no interference from magnetic fields or radiation. The aliens had never needed to build things that could work in the middle of a hurricane or during an earthquake. Watch this, Dr. Yeji said, holding up a Federation plasma pistol. She had been working on it for days, taking it apart and putting it back together. This is what happens when you expose it to normal Earth conditions. She placed the pistol in a small chamber and pressed a button. The chamber filled with mist that looked like the fog from a normal rainy day on Earth. Within seconds, the pistol's display started flickering. After a minute, it stopped working completely. Moisture in the air, she explained. Something that exists everywhere on Earth, but nowhere on their perfect garden worlds. Their weapons are useless here. Dr. Sung-hoon grinned. But ours are not. Useless there? He walked over to a workbench where his latest creation was taking shape. It looked like a Federation plasma rifle, but everything about it was different. The metal was darker and covered in small bumps that helped it grip better in wet hands. The power core was 3 times bigger and surrounded by thick armor plating. Instead of one energy system, it had 4 separate ones, so if 3 of them failed, the weapon would still work. I call it the Deathworld Special, he said proudly. It can work underwater, in a sandstorm, during a lightning strike, or in the middle of a nuclear explosion, and it hits twice as hard as the original. Did you make it so much more powerful? Asked Dr. Haniel, who had been working on manufacturing systems. Simple, Sung-hoon replied. They designed their weapons to be safe and efficient. I designed mine to kill things.
Ow.
Dr. Haniel laughed. Speaking of killing things, wait until you see what I have been working on. She led them to a corner of the laboratory where a small robot was building another robot. The second robot was building a third robot, which was building a fourth robot. It was like watching a mechanical family tree grow in real time. Self-replicating manufacturing drones, Haniel explained. You give them raw materials and a design, and they build copies of themselves along with whatever you want. 1 drone becomes 2, 2 become 4, 4 become 8. Within a month, you can have 1 million drones building whatever you need. The Federation has nothing like this, Dr. Yeji said, impressed. Of course not, Haniel replied. They have never needed to build things quickly under pressure. When everything is peaceful and safe, you can take your time and make everything perfect. When you live on a death world, you need to build things fast and make them work immediately. Ambassador Thelanara and 2 other Federation observers watched. From behind a thick glass wall, their skin had turned pale green, which meant they were either sick or terrified. Probably both. What have we done? Whispered Thelanara's assistant. Crixina. We asked for help from monsters. No, Thelanara said quietly. We asked for help from survivors. There is a difference. On the other side of the glass, Dr. Sung-hoon was explaining his latest invention to General Jisoo. It was a kinetic bombardment, a system that could accelerate chunks of metal to incredible speeds using fusion power. The chunks were not explosive, but they did not need to be. When something hits you at half the speed of light, it does not matter what it is made of. How much damage can it do? Jisoo asked. Depends on the size of the projectile, Sung-hoon replied. Casually, a pebble can destroy a building, a rock can level a city, a boulder can crack a moon. How long would it take to build one? With Dr. Haniel's manufacturing drones, about a week. Jusu smiled the same predator smile she had shown. Ambassador Thelanara. Build 100. 100. Sung-hoon looked surprised. General, that seems like overkill. Dr. Sung-hoon, Jusu said patiently. The Void Syndicate has been terrorizing the galaxy for centuries. They've destroyed 47 worlds and killed billions of people. They think they are the strongest predators in the universe. She looked through the glass at the terrified Federation observers. It is time to show them what real predators look like. The scientists went back to work. With renewed energy, they had a galaxy to save and an empire to destroy. And thanks to their Deathworld evolution, they knew exactly how to do it. The bridge of the UES Defiance stretched out like a steel cathedral, its curved windows showing the organized chaos of Earth's orbital shipyards. Commander Seok-jin stood at the center, watching thousands of workers in spacesuits crawl over the hull of humanity's newest warship, like ants building a nest. This was not just any ship. The Defiance was the first vessel designed from scratch for galactic warfare, built with lessons learned from studying both Federation technology and human ingenuity. Its hull was twice as thick as normal, designed to survive the kind of punishment that would destroy alien vessels. Its weapon systems could function in any environment. From the vacuum of space to the crushing depths of a giant's atmosphere. But the ship was only a small part of what humanity was building. Through the bridge windows, Seok-jin could see the real miracle taking place. Earth's entire civilization was transforming itself into a machine designed for one purpose: saving strangers. Called out Communications Officer Chae-won from her station. We're getting reports from the agricultural stations. Dr. Nahan's team has successfully modified wheat and rice to provide proper nutrition for Zephyrian biology. Seok-jin walked over to Chae-won's station, where screens showed data streaming. In from across the solar system. How long did that take them? 72 hours, Chae-won replied, shaking her head in amazement. They studied the biological samples the Federation provided, figured out Zephyrian digestive systems, and genetically modified our crops to match. The first harvest will be ready in 2 weeks. This was typical of humanity's response to the crisis. While other species might have spent months or years planning and discussing, humans simply started doing. Agricultural scientist Dr. Nayin had not waited for official approval or funding. She had gathered her team and started working the moment she heard about the refugee crisis. What about medical preparations? Seok-jin asked. Dr. Wanwoo's field hospitals are already being loaded onto transport ships, reported medical coordinator Lieutenant Ji-hoon. He's created treatment protocols for 17 different alien species, including surgical procedures for anatomies we've never seen before. Seok-jin nodded, but he was not surprised. Dr. Wanwoo had spent his career treating injuries in Earth's most dangerous environments. He had performed surgery during earthquakes, treated radiation poisoning in the middle of nuclear disasters, and saved lives in conditions that would kill most people. Treating alien biology was just another challenge to overcome. The real miracle was happening on Earth itself. Major Dae-yoon, the logistics coordinator, appeared on the main screen from her command center in Geneva. Behind her, Seok-jin could see hundreds of people working at computer stations coordinating the largest mobilization in human history. Supply lines are established across 3 star systems, Dae-yoon reported. We have transport ships moving food, medical supplies, and construction equipment to potential refugee sites. Civilian volunteers are learning Zephyrian language protocols so they can communicate with survivors. How many volunteers? Seok-jin asked. Over 2 million registered in the last week, Do-yoon replied. Teachers, doctors, engineers, farmers, construction workers. People from every profession you can imagine. They're all asking the same question. What can I do to help? This was what made humanity different from the Federation species. When the Zephyrians were attacked, the galaxy's other civilizations had held meetings and written strongly worded letters. When humans learned about the attack, ordinary people had started learning alien languages and modifying their farms too. Grow food for refugees they had never met. "Sir," called out Navigation Officer Yuzhin from the other side of the bridge. "We're getting a transmission from the lunar construction facilities. The refugee camps will be operational in 12 hours. Seokjin walked over to look at the images on Yujin's screen. The moon's surface was being transformed into a massive refugee center. Thousands of construction drones were building pressurized habitats, medical facilities, and food processing plants. Each habitat was designed to accommodate different alien biologies, with atmosphere processors that could provide the exact air mixture each species needed to survive. "How many refugees can we accommodate?" Seokjin asked. "Current capacity is 5 million, Yujin replied. "But the construction drones are still building. Dr. Haniel's self-replicating systems are expanding the facilities every hour." Ambassador Thelanara stood quietly in the corner of the bridge, watching the humans work. Her gray skin had turned a healthier shade of blue as she began to understand what she was witnessing. This was not just military preparation. This was an entire species mobilizing to save people they had never met. "Commander," she said softly, "I must ask you something. Why are your people doing this? You barely know us. The refugees are not even from your world. Why risk everything for strangers?" Seokjin turned to face her, and for the first time since she had arrived on Earth, Thelanara saw him smile. It was not the predator smile she had learned to fear from other humans. This was something warmer, but somehow more frightening. "Because they are not strangers," he said simply. "They are people who need help. On Earth we have a saying, 'No one fights alone.' It means that when someone is in trouble, everyone comes to help. But this is war," Thelanara protested. "Your people could die." "Yes," Seokjin agreed. "They could. But you know what would happen if we did nothing? We'd have to live with ourselves knowing we let innocent people die when we could have saved them. For humans, that is worse than death." The ambassador looked around the bridge at the humans working at their stations. They were not superhuman warriors or advanced aliens. They were ordinary people who had decided to risk everything to save others. In that moment, she finally understood why her people had been right to come to Earth for help. "The Void Syndicate has terrorized the galaxy for centuries," Seokjin continued. "They have won every battle because they only fight for themselves. But they have never fought an entire civilization that was fighting for everyone else." He turned back to the windows, where Earth's fleet was taking shape. "They are about to learn what happens when you threaten the pack." The space around the Kepler 442 system looked like a graveyard. Broken pieces of what used to be beautiful Zephyrian cities floated in the darkness, spinning slowly as they drifted away from their dead homeworld. Captain Junggua's fighter squadron had traveled for 3 days through hyperspace to reach this place, expecting to find nothing but ruins and silence. Instead, they found a hunt in progress. "Contact," reported Lieutenant Minsiok from his position as squadron sensor operator. "Multiple syndicate ships bearing 27 Mark IV. They're chasing something." Jungwoo's fighter, the Soul Lightning, is built like a miniature version of Earth's philosophy. Tough, adaptable, and deadly. Its hull was designed to survive the lightning storms that raged through Earth's upper atmosphere, where winds could reach 300 miles per hour and the air itself could burn metal. Compared to that, the vacuum of space felt peaceful. "Are they chasing?" Jungwoo asked, adjusting his sensors to get a better look. "Refugee ships," Minsiok replied, his voice tight with anger. "Looks like civilian transports trying to escape through the asteroid field. The syndicate ships are hunting them like animals." Through his cockpit window, Jungwoo could see the chase happening in the distance. 3 large black ships, each one the size of a city block, were firing bright red plasma beams at smaller vessels that dodged desperately between floating chunks of rock. The refugee ships were not built for fighting. They were cargo haulers and passenger liners, carrying families who had managed to escape when their world died. "How many refugees?" Jungwoo asked. "Scans show approximately 30,000 people." "Across 12 ships," reported Wing Commander Sulji, who was flying parallel to Jungwoo's fighter. "But they won't last long. Syndicate ships are picking them off one by one." Jungwoo watched as one of the red plasma beams struck a refugee ship. The small vessel exploded into a ball of fire that quickly disappeared in the airless vacuum. Hundreds of families gone in an instant. "All units, this is Soul Lightning," Jungwoo said into his radio, his voice carrying the cold fury of a predator whose pack was being threatened. "Weapons free. Protect the refugees, the 12 fighters." A Eagle squadron had been built specifically for this mission. Each one carried weapons that could crack asteroids and armor that could survive nuclear explosions. But more importantly, they carried pilots who had grown up in a world where everything tried to kill them. "Engaging primary target," reported Lieutenant Hunbin, diving his fighter toward the nearest syndicate ship. "Let's show these monsters what real predators look like." The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human fighters moved through the asteroid field like they were dancing, using the floating rocks not as obstacles to avoid, but as weapons to throw. Their ship's magnetic systems could grab chunks of asteroid and accelerate them to incredible speeds, turning simple rocks into devastating projectiles. Fox 3 called out Wing Commander Sulji, launching a modified torpedo that used a small asteroid as its warhead. The rock, no bigger than a car, struck the syndicate ship. At nearly the speed of light, the impact created an explosion that lit up the entire asteroid field. The syndicate ships, built to terrorize peaceful civilizations, had never faced opponents who fought back with such precision and fury. Their plasma weapons were designed to destroy cities and intimidate populations, not to engage in fast-moving dogfights with opponents who treated space combat like a deadly sport. "Target eliminated," Sulji reported, her tone as casual as if she were discussing the weather. Moving to assist refugee evacuation, Lieutenant Minsiak's fighter swooped between two asteroid chunks, chasing a syndicate ship that was trying to escape. "You're not going anywhere," he muttered, targeting the enemy's engine section. His weapons were not the elegant energy beams favored by Federation species. They were kinetic projectiles. Chunks of dense metal accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic fields. When the projectiles hit the syndicate ship, they punched through its hull like paper. Ship's reactor exploded, creating a brief star that illuminated the refugees' frightened faces as they watched their tormentors die. "This is impossible," came a panicked transmission from the surviving syndicate ship. "How are they moving so fast? How are their weapons so powerful?" Captain Jungwoo's fighter streaked through the asteroid field, dodging rocks that would have crushed a normal ship. His targeting system locked onto the final enemy vessel, which was trying to hide behind a large asteroid. "Because we're from Earth," Jungwoo said into his radio, knowing the syndicate ship would hear him. "And on Earth, we learned to fight back." His final shot was a masterpiece of Deathworld engineering. Instead of trying to destroy the enemy ship directly, he targeted the asteroid it was hiding behind. The explosion sent millions of rock fragments, flying in all directions, each one moving fast enough to penetrate the syndicate ship's armor. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it ended, the 3 syndicate ships that had been terrorizing innocent refugees were nothing more than expanding clouds of gas and metal debris. The survivors had retreated in panic, sending frantic messages back to their commanders about impossible Deathworld demons. "All refugee ships, this is Captain Jungwoo of the Earth Defense Force." He broadcast on all frequencies. "You are safe now. We're here to help." The response came in a dozen different languages, but the meaning was clear: gratitude, relief, and wonder. The Zephyrians had heard stories about the Deathworlders who had promised to help them, but they had never imagined that help would come with such devastating effectiveness. "Soul Lightning to all units," Jungwoo said to his squadron. "Form up. For escort duty, we're taking these people home." As the human fighters arranged themselves around the refugee convoy, the survivors began to understand something important. The galaxy's most feared predators were not the syndicate ships that had hunted them through the darkness. They were the humans who had come to save them. And for the first time in centuries, the hunters had become the hunted. The smoke was still rising from the destroyed guard towers when General Jasu walked through the main gate of Labor Camp 7. Her combat boots crunched on broken glass and twisted metal as she surveyed what had once been a nightmare made real. The Syndicate had built this place to break the spirits of captured civilians. turning proud Zephyrian families into slave workers who mined rare crystals from the planet's core. Now the camp was free. The contrast was shocking. Just 20 minutes earlier, her soldiers had been weapons of pure destruction. They had moved through the camp's defenses like a storm wind, tearing apart automated gun turrets and reducing guard barracks to rubble. Syndicate forces used to terrorizing helpless prisoners had lasted less than 10 minutes against Earth's special forces. But now, those same soldiers were kneeling beside wounded aliens, speaking in soft voices and offering water to children who had never seen kindness from an armed person. "Easy there, little one," Sergeant Huygens said gently, crouching down next to a Zephyrian girl who could not have been more than 6 years old. The child's golden skin was pale with fear, and her large eyes stared at the human soldier with terror. Huygens' armor was still smoking from the battle, and drops of blood from the camp guards were splattered across her helmet. But her voice was as gentle as a mother singing a lullaby. "No one fights alone," she whispered in carefully practiced Zephyrian, removing her helmet so the child could see her face. "We're here to help." The little girl looked at Huygens' face, then at the other humans who were carefully lifting her wounded father onto a stretcher. Slowly, she reached out and touched the sergeant's hand. "Are you angels?" the child asked in her own language. Huygens did not understand the words, but she understood the meaning. She smiled and gently picked up the girl, carrying her toward the medical transport where Dr. Wunwu and his team were working frantically to save lives. General Ashu watched the scene repeated throughout the camp. Human soldiers who had just demolished an entire military installation were now distributing food packets and blankets to refugees. Marines who could kill with their bare hands were helping elderly Zephyrians walk to safety. Engineers who had blown up the camp's power systems were now setting up temporary shelters for the survivors. "General," called out Lieutenant Jungi, approaching through the smoke. His squad had been assigned to clear the eastern section of the camp, but they looked exhausted despite the easy victory. Port Jesu said. "Eastern section is secure," Jungi replied. "But we found a family trapped in a collapsed building. The parents are injured, and there are 3 children who are scared to come out. Can you reach them?" Jungi shook his head. "The building is unstable. One wrong move and the whole thing comes down, but we're not leaving them there." Jusu nodded. This was what made humans different from every other species in the galaxy. A logical military commander would have written off the trapped family as acceptable losses. The strategic objective was complete, the camp was liberated, and risking more soldiers for a few civilians made no tactical sense. But humans did not think like that. "Take whatever you need," Jisoo told him. "Get them out." For the next 2 hours, Yunga's squad worked with engineering teams to carefully dismantle the collapsed building piece by piece. They used precision-cutting tools to slice through twisted metal beams and anti-gravity lifts to move concrete blocks without disturbing the structure. The work was dangerous, slow, and exhausting. Finally, they reached the trapped family. The mother was unconscious. The father had a broken leg. And the 3 children were huddled together in a small space that had protected them from the collapse. One of the children, a boy about 10 years old, looked up at Jungi with wide eyes. "You going to hurt us?" he asked in broken Federation standard. Jungi removed his helmet and smiled. "No, buddy. I'm going to get you out of here." When the family was finally extracted and rushed to the medical transport, a Federation war correspondent who had been documenting the liberation asked Jungi why he had risked his life for strangers. "Because it's what we do," Jungi replied, simply, as if the question made no sense. The correspondent, a being called Zixara, whose species had been observing the human military campaign, shook her head in confusion, but the tactical value was minimal. Could have been killed for. "People you don't even know." "That's the point," Jungi said. "We don't need to know them. They needed help, so we helped. It's that simple." This scene was being repeated across the galaxy as human forces pushed deeper into Syndicate territory. Every battle became a rescue operation. Every victory was measured not just in enemy ships destroyed, but in civilian lives saved. Human soldiers threw themselves into impossible odds to protect people they had never met from worlds they had never seen. The galaxy watched in growing awe as humanity's true nature revealed itself. These were not just efficient killers or superior warriors, were protectors who had chosen to extend their pack bonds to encompass every innocent life in the galaxy. News reports began calling them the guardian angels of the void. Federation citizens who had never seen humans before started calling them the protectors. Even the Syndicate's own propaganda could not hide the truth. These Deathworlders were not fighting for conquest or glory. They were fighting for everyone. And, for the first time in 3 centuries, the Syndicate began to retreat. Not from human weapons, though those were devastating. Not from human tactics, though those were brilliant. They retreated from something they had never encountered before, an entire species that valued the lives of strangers more than their own safety. The most feared empire in the galaxy was learning what it meant to face true predators, predators who protected instead of hunted, who saved instead of destroyed, who chose compassion over conquest. The humans had revealed themselves, and the galaxy would never be the same. The fortress world of Kethmer hung in space like a black metal moon, its surface covered in weapons, platforms and shield generators that had protected the Syndicate's capital for over 300 years. Every surface bristled with plasma cannons the size of skyscrapers. Energy barriers surrounded the planet in layers, each one strong enough to stop a nuclear explosion. Admiral Chayung stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, studying the tactical displays with the calm focus of a surgeon preparing for a delicate operation. Around her, the largest human fleet ever assembled waited for orders. 200 ships, each one carrying weapons that could crack moons and soldiers who had never known defeat. Admiral reported Commander Ji-Wan from her position at the tactical station. All Federation fleets are in position, requesting permission to begin the bombardment. Chalyung shook her head. Tell them to hold position. We're not going to attack the shields. Federation commanders on the communication screen looked confused. Admiral Dekmol, whose species had been fighting the Syndicate for decades, raised his forearms in frustration. But Admiral, those shields are impenetrable. We have tried everything. Plasma bombardment, antimatter torpedoes, even stellar compression weapons. Nothing works. That's because you were attacking the wrong target, Chayun replied calmly. Commander Ji-Wan, begin deep scan of the planet's geological structure. The screens around the bridge changed to show a cross-section of Kethmer's interior. The planet was artificial, built by the Syndicate as their ultimate stronghold. But like all artificial things, it had weaknesses that natural planets did not. Chayung said, pointing to a series of structural supports deep in the planet's core. The whole thing is held together by fusion-powered gravity generators. Take those out, and the planet collapses on itself. But Admiral, protested Commander Gi-Wan, those generators are 500 miles underground. How do we reach them? Chae-Yung smiled the same predator smile that had terrified Ambassador Thelanara months ago. We don't go around the shields. We go through the planet. The kinetic bombardment began 30 minutes later. Human ships launched projectiles that were not explosives or energy weapons, but simple chunks of dense metal accelerated to incredible speeds. The projectiles punched through Kethmer's crust like bullets through paper, creating tunnels that went straight down to the planet's core. First wave successful, reported Weapons Officer Lieutenant Chan Wu. Penetration depth 450 miles, or almost at the target level. The second wave consisted of seismic charges, small devices that used controlled nuclear explosions to create precise earthquake patterns. They followed the tunnels created by the kinetic bombardment, spreading through the planet's core like a virus designed to destroy artificial gravity systems. Seismic charges are fragmenting the planetary crust, Commander Ji-Wan reported. The gravity generators are failing one by one. On the surface of Kethmer, the Syndicate's commanders watched, in horror, as their impregnable fortress began to tear itself apart. The shields were still working perfectly, but they were protecting a planet that was collapsing beneath them. Buildings that had stood for centuries crumbled as the artificial gravity failed. Weapons platforms designed to withstand any attack simply fell into the growing cracks in the planet's surface. This is impossible, transmitted General Vexther, the Syndicate's supreme military commander. How are they destroying us without even touching our defenses? 'Cause they're from Earth, Admiral Chayung replied over the open channel. And on Earth we learned that the strongest castle is useless if you can undermine its foundation. Battle was a symphony of human warfare, terrifyingly precise and devastatingly effective. Each weapon was carefully targeted to destroy military installations while avoiding civilian areas. When the Syndicate's orbital platforms began falling from the sky, human ships moved in to establish evacuation zones for non-combatants. Admiral called out Communications Officer Yerem. We're receiving surrender signals from multiple Syndicate commanders. They're asking for terms. Tell them to cease all military operations and prepare for boarding, Chai-Yung ordered. Medical teams are standing by to treat their wounded. The surrender of Kethmer took 6 hours. When it was over, the most feared military force in the galaxy had been reduced to scattered groups of defeated soldiers who could barely believe what had happened to them. General Vexter sat in what had once been his command center. Now, a pile of rubble held together by emergency force fields. His armor was cracked, his weapons were gone, and his left arm hung uselessly at his side. When the human medical team arrived, he expected to be executed. Instead, Dr. Minjay knelt beside him and began treating his injuries. Why? Vexter asked, in a voice broken by defeat and confusion. Why are you helping me? I would have killed you without hesitation. Dr. Minjay continued working on the general's arm, setting the broken bone with gentle precision. Because the war is over, he replied simply, and you're no longer a threat. But I am your enemy, Vexter protested. I have killed thousands. Of your people, you were my enemy, Dr. Minjay corrected. Now you're just someone who needs medical attention. Around them, other human soldiers were distributing food and water to captured Syndicate troops. The same warriors who had just destroyed an entire fortress world were now making sure their former enemies had blankets and medical care. General, Vexter stared at the human doctor in amazement. I don't understand. How can you show mercy to someone who showed none to others? Dr. Minjay finished treating the general's arm and sat back on his heels. Because that's what separates us from you. You fought because you enjoyed causing pain. We fought because we wanted to stop pain. The war is over, which means our job is done. What happens to us now? Vexter asked. Now you face trial for your crimes, Dr. Minjay replied. But you'll face it as prisoners of war, not as victims of revenge. There's a difference. The galaxy watched in amazement as humanity's true nature revealed itself once again. These Deathworlders had not just defeated the Syndicate militarily, they had defeated them morally, showing that strength without compassion was meaningless, and that true predators knew when to stop hunting. The Syndicate's reign of terror was over, ended not by a species seeking conquest, but by a species seeking justice. And in that moment, the galaxy learned what it meant to be protected by beings who understood the difference between an enemy and a defeated foe. The reckoning was complete, and the universe was free. 6 months after the fall of Kethmer, Captain Seokjin stood in the observation lounge of the UES Defiance, watching a sight that would have been impossible just a year ago. Through the massive windows, he could see human patrol ships moving alongside vessels from dozens of different species, all working together to keep the shipping lanes safe. The galaxy had changed, where once there had been fear and helplessness. Now there was cooperation and hope. The Syndicate's reign of terror was over, but the work of protecting innocent lives continued every day. Sir, called Communications Officer Chae-Wan from the bridge, receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian homeworld. President Korthala wants to thank us again for the new agricultural systems. Chok-Shin smiled as he looked toward the Zephyrian system. Their world had been a burned wasteland when the humans first arrived, but now it was green again. Human engineers had worked alongside Zephyrian farmers to rebuild not just their cities, but their entire ecosystem. The new farms used Earth design technology that could grow crops in soil that had been poisoned by Syndicate weapons. Send our regards to President Korthala, Seokjin replied. Tell him the harvest reports look excellent. It was moments like these that made the war worth fighting. The Zephyrians were not just surviving now, they were thriving. Their children played in parks that had been built on the ruins of Syndicate labor camps. Their artists created beautiful sculptures from the metal of destroyed enemy ships. There, scientists worked with human researchers to develop new technologies that would help other recovering worlds. Captain Chewan called out again, her voice more urgent this time. We're receiving a distress signal from the Altarian colonies. They're under attack by pirates. Seokjin's expression hardened. The syndicate was gone, but the galaxy was still full of smaller predators who thought they could take advantage of peaceful worlds. Pirates, raiders, and criminal organizations that had stayed hidden during the syndicate's reign were now testing the new order. They were about to learn that the new order had very sharp teeth. How many ships? Seokjin asked, walking quickly toward the bridge. Scans showed 12 pirate vessels attacking a civilian convoy, reported Tactical Officer Lieutenant Minho. The Altarians are requesting immediate assistance. Set course for the Altarian system, Seokjin ordered. Maximum speed. Send a message ahead. Earth stands with you. The phrase had become humanity's calling card across the galaxy, for simple words that carried the promise that no one would face danger alone. When peaceful worlds saw those words, they knew help was coming. When criminals and raiders heard them, they knew their time was up. As the Defiance jumped into hyperspace, Seokjin thought about how much had changed since that first desperate message from the Zephyrians. The galaxy's civilized species were no longer helpless victims waiting for someone else to save them. Had learned from humanity's example, the peaceful Veltari had established their own defense forces, training their people to protect their beautiful garden worlds. The scholarly Thekanari were sharing military tactics alongside their usual scientific discoveries, teaching other species how to defend themselves. Even the timid Krixani had formed a mutual defense pact with their neighbors. Captain, reported Navigation Officer Yujin, we're dropping out of hyperspace in 30 seconds. The Altarian system is just ahead. All hands, battle stations. Seokjin announced over the ship's intercom. This is a rescue operation. Priority is civilian protection. The Defiance emerged from hyperspace like a predator stepping out of the shadows. The pirate ships, which had been casually hunting the Altarian convoy, suddenly found themselves facing a human warship that could have destroyed their entire fleet single-handedly. This is Captain Seokjin of the UES Defiance, he broadcast. On all frequencies, you have 30 seconds to cease your attack and surrender. This is your only warning. The pirate leader, a being called Cracksmell, who had been terrorizing merchant ships for decades, laughed at the transmission. 1 ship against 12? You Deathworlders are as stupid as they say. 20 seconds, Seokjin replied calmly. The pirates opened fire, their weapons lighting up the darkness of space with angry red beams. The Defiance's shields absorbed the attack without even flickering. 10 seconds, Seokjin continued. More pirate ships joined the attack, pouring everything they had into the human vessel. The Defiance continued forward, unharmed. Time's up, Seokjin said. The battle lasted for minutes. When it was over, half the pirate fleet was destroyed, and the other half was fleeing in panic. The Altarian convoy was safe, and another group of predators had learned that the galaxy's new guardians were not to be underestimated. All Altarian vessels, this is the UES Defiance, Seokjin broadcast. You are safe now. Escort ships are en route to accompany you to your destination. The response came in grateful voices speaking the musical language of the Altarians. They were a species that looked like tall, graceful birds with feathers that changed color based on their emotions. Right now, their feathers were shining with colors that meant relief, gratitude, and hope. As the Defiance resumed its patrol route, Seokjin reflected on humanity's new role in the galaxy. They had not conquered the universe through force or established an empire through fear. Instead, they had chosen to become the guardians that the galaxy needed, the protectors that stood between the innocent and those who would harm them. Across the galaxy, human ships carried the same message. Earth stands with you, and in the deepest reaches of space, where new threats still lurked in the darkness. That message served as both a promise and a warning. The universe was safer now, not because humanity had conquered it, but because they had chosen to protect it. And as long as there were innocent lives to defend, the Deathworlders would be watching. ready to roar to war when the helpless cried for help. The galaxy had learned what it meant to have guardians who were born in hell but chose to fight for heaven, and in that knowledge there was peace. The story was over, but the protection would last forever.